Two things exist that seemingly should contradict each other and should not coexist. A dimension of space is defined by the minimum number of coordinates needed to specify any point within it. Therefore, a line has a dimension of 1 because only one coordinate is needed to specify a point on it. Why can't we see extraterrestrials? Why do they not just land on the White House lawn? I've heard that one a few times. Why don't they come and help us and save us from ourselves? Well, if they're everywhere, why can't we see them? What is the root of all religion? And as I started looking for the root of all religion, well, you can't help but look for the root of everything. Because if you're looking for the root of religion, it's almost like saying the root of our connection to the divine, the root of where do we come from, right? And that took me down all these different pathways that, of course, eventually and very quickly led me to the whole concept of extraterrestrials and interdimensional beings. And the fact that maybe a lot of these religions talking about these beings visiting us weren't actually God in the essence of this all omnipresent energy, but could have actually been beings visiting us from the stars. And as this occurred, I started quickly realizing that there were two types of ancient origin stories when I was looking for origin stories in ancient scriptures. I found ones that I broke down into prehistory stories, history before the history before the history books and history before Earth even existed, and then Earth history stories. So in these ancient scriptures, whether it was Egyptian scriptures, Sumerian scriptures, the Old Testament, the Bhagavad Gita, the Mahabharata, right? All these different ones seem to be in these two different categories. And as I said, before Earth, time, and space would be the prehistory stories. And here's an example for you, the prehistory example, and in science, right? And the metaphysics. So again, prehistory is before Earth was formed, maybe even before the universe was created or how the universe came about in the first place. In science, this one's pretty much well known. This is what's accepted mainstream scientifically globally. Cosmological models maintain that 13.8 billion years ago, the entire mass of the universe was compressed into a gravitational singularity, the so-called cosmic egg, from which it expanded to its current state following the Big Bang. So yes, that is the Big Bang story, right? But just take a look here, compressed into infinite singularity. They called it the cosmic egg, even within science. And of course, the metaphysical understanding is the cosmic egg represents potentiality. It is the pre creation held within the chaos, waiting to become the cosmos. This duality then set up a conflict found throughout world mythology, the duality of chaos, order, good, evil, light, dark, love, and hate. So these are the exact same thing here. And as I shared in the panel, we have quantum physics, scientific model, and we have metaphysics, the feminine, the masculine way of explaining things, the feminine way. The masculine way of explaining things are factual. This plus this equals this. The feminine metaphysical way of explaining things is the reason why, right? One plus one equals two. And then the metaphysical component to that would be, why does one plus one equal two? It would be almost like a poem, like a piece of art explaining that mathematical equation. So these are the two prehistory examples. And now we have galactic origin stories. And that in sometimes you don't even know if because it's so artistically put together, whether it's really speaking about off planet, on planet before the creation came about, because sometimes these stories talk about archetypal energies and beings, and when they're not even actually speaking about beings, but are personifying archetypal energies of the universe, such as light and dark and masculine, feminine. So, but then we have galactic origin stories, a combination of prehistory stories and Earth history. Humanity's journey from inception, creation, to its current linear experience on Earth, what it took for us to get to Earth right now and experience the third dimension. Here, though, you see a concept of a paradox, and we'll talk about paradoxes in a minute, but paradoxes are throughout the universe. The universe exists on a paradox. But the reason why this is a paradox is it introduces the concept of an origin when time is only a construct of a position in space relative to the sun, because all things are happening simultaneously, not only in the quantum world when us spiritual people say everything's happening at once, but technically you can get a telescope and you can look as far as you can into space through the telescope. And what are you doing? You're looking back in time. You're seeing all those elements, all those moments that have occurred in throughout time, all through one lens now. So it's not even some pie in the sky kind of vision. We are literally doing that with our telescopes on Earth. We are looking at reality all happening simultaneously. Now we have a limited bandwidth of frequency of perception, but we're still able to do it with our limitations. So, what is the universal paradox? The paradox, what is a paradox at first? It's when two things exist that seemingly should contradict each other and should not coexist, right? So, there aren't technically, there shouldn't be any paradoxes because how can this, the opposite of something that goes against this thing, coexist? Well, here are just a few of them. One is the universe is infinite, but it's also finite. Outside our minds, our linear minds have to think that outside of one thing needs to be another. Outside this house is a city. Outside the city is a country, Earth, solar system, galaxy, universe. What's next? Right? Outside of something has to be something else. That's the way our mind works, right? And then even if we start looking at parallel universes and multiverses, well, now even within spirituality and science, we're saying that there are other bubble universes outside a universe. Okay, so now we even accepting on that level that we could be in a multiverse. So outside a universe is another universe. However, we perceive the universe as infinite, and we're perceiving the universe as infinitely expanding. I don't know if anybody got the memo, but back in the 90s and 80s, they said the universe was going to collapse on itself because after it expands, it's going to collapse. Now that's been changed because through over the last couple of decades, they've we've expanded our understanding of the universe, and it's actually exponentially increasing. It's not slowing down. At first, they thought it was slowing down to eventually go to a halt, and then it will collapse on itself. But now we are perceiving it as infinitely expanding into infinity. It's a paradox. Time exists and time doesn't exist. We are solid beings, like this computer is solid, this table is solid, this is solid. However, on the subatomic level, we can now prove that everything is not solid. All things are vibration. It's a paradox. The universe exists within a paradox. So now what we're going to do first is we're going to go over, before we get into galactic origins, we're going to go over dimensions and the mechanics of our galaxy. And you can see here, we're going to break down 1 dimension, 2 dimensions, 3. And you can see 1 dimension here is this straight line. And the reason why it's 1 dimension is there's only 1 point on the straight line. Okay. Now we have 2 dimensions. We have length and width. So now we got 2 dimensions, right? 2-dimensional space. And then what is 3 dimensions? 3 dimensions is length, width, and height. Simple as that. We have 3 dimensions, length, width, and height. But what is the 4th? We'll get to the 4th later, but take a moment here and just take a look at that little dot in the 3rd-dimensional, in the 3 dimensions one, and we'll get back to that. So in this presentation, most of these slides are going to have a metaphysical understanding and a scientific understanding. And the way I look at it is that as we talk about both sides of creation, the light, dark, the feminine, the masculine, we're actually connecting both sides in the hemispheres of our brains. And I don't really feel like one is better than the other. Actually, I don't feel like that at all. But a lot of times in this world where we have one thing be so dominant, that what we do is we go to the other extreme to correct to try to balance out the extremity that we were on the other side. For example, being overly masculine, so then now the answer is to be overly feminine, but the truth is almost always somewhere in between. And so what needs to happen is an understanding and acceptance of that masculine way of explaining things. And again, this has nothing to do with gender. This is the archetypal energy of the universe. And then the creative, the feminine energy. So the physics and mathematics. What are dimensions? A dimension of space is defined by the minimum number of coordinates needed to specify any point within it. Therefore, a line has a dimension of 1 because only 1 coordinate is needed to specify a point on it. And now metaphysics, spirituality, and consciousness. It's a realm and or a frequency of experience that can be obtained through various forms of conscious awareness, soul contracts, karmic agreements, and more. See the difference here. literally just a factual thing in the mathematics, that this is what it is, a point on this dimension. Now, in spiritually and consciously, it's a realm of experience. I like to call it a realm of experience because I'm not too fond of utilizing hierarchical terms like higher dimensions, lower dimensions, because that's just a construct of our own understanding of hierarchy. Maybe it's not an understanding of what the grand scheme of what we truly are. I think maybe even that's a limitation. So the world as we know it has three dimensions, okay? Length, width, depth, and one dimension of time. That's the fourth dimension. And we'll talk a bit more. Is it the fourth dimension? What is that? So technically within physics, the fourth dimension is time space, space time. Physicists, mathematics, and spiritualists believe in possibility that many more dimensions exist. According to string theory, they believe there's at least 10. But there's all types of different dimensions, guys. It's been used so broadly. Maybe we need more defined, definitive words for different types. For example, there's parallel dimensions, there's physical and spiritual dimensions, realms of energy, for example, realms of physicality. There's realms of no dimension, which is a dimension in itself. The void is a dimension. There's a dimension within a dimension as well. So it's important to realize that these concepts and titles may have been spiritually informed, but are also human constructs based on our perception and unique experience on Earth. And that is going back to the whole hierarchical thing that we may be receiving some downloads to understand dimensions, but we also got to be kind of like frank with ourselves to the understanding that we have a limited perception of frequencies when we're trying to define what it is. And even those of us who are connected to other realms and dimensions, who to say how fragmented we are from the ultimate source of what it all is, right? I got a theory that it's almost like standalone systems that are all part of the one, and each one of these even have their own kind of godhead or archangel or type of energy that represents as a representation of source. And so when we speak about these, just having your mind open to it being really much more than we can even fathom on Earth. So now I want to welcome you guys to the Milky Way galaxy. Our galaxy is speeding through space, and Earth is traveling through space at 1.3 million miles per hour. So we're going 25 miles per second closer to the center of the Milky Way galaxy. And we're also traveling alongside our local cluster, 375 miles a second towards the Virgo cluster, which is an enormous collection of galaxies about 45 million light years away. So we're heading towards that as well. We're going to go through some of our galaxy dynamics here, what the Milky Way looks like. And you might have seen this, that there is a pattern in creation, right? The Fibonacci spiral, other types of equations, sacred geometry. There is there is a pattern to creation that is based on actual equations, where on some level we're seeing not only the mathematics but the harmonics of what creates us all. And the question is, are we looking at the code of what creates us? Are we seeing the geometry that represents the grand design of creation? Right. And you can see here the Milky Way galaxy is a Fibonacci spiral galaxy. There's other types of galaxies that aren't um, spiral galaxies like ours, but our galaxy shape is the most common. And then you have, of course, this the circle all the way to the seed of life, all the way to the flower of life, that not only represents the way galaxies and nebula are created, right? These ancient geometries that have been on wall art for so many thousands of years, and Pythagoras loved so much, but it also represents mitosis. So as above, so below, how galaxies and universes, galaxies and nebula are created, and also how humans and all beings on this planet are created as well through mitosis, through cellular division, right? Isn't it very interesting that these ancient people had these symbols with, and everybody on this platform already knows that the ancients weren't as dumb as they try to make us think they are, right? That they definitely had some sort of awareness, but the awareness that they had is still next level. Look at this. They knew how mitosis worked inside the body. They knew how stars and galaxies are formed. Now we're still on the galaxy here. So this image that you're looking at, this line in the middle of this image, that is the flat plane of the Milky Way galaxy. The curvature up and down is the position of our solar system in our galaxy. So we are the curvature, and this is how we curve up and down all the way around our galaxy. Because not only do our planets rotate around our sun, but we're also rotate around the central sun, the black hole in the center of the galaxy. And as we're doing that, we're doing a third thing. We're diving up above the galactic disk, below the galactic disk, above, below, above, below. Now, this is a good slide here to really bring home the topic of this conference, contact and consciousness. So this graph, and I said this also in the panel, how our solar system's position in our galaxy also represents an awakening. Whether or not you are waking up yourself or not, our galaxy, solar system is in a position in the galaxy where all the energies around us are encouraging an awakening. And you can see here the trajectory of Earth. So let's go back around 13,000 years when the Sphinx has now been geologically studied to have existed through the erosion around the Sphinx, right? So chances are Egypt was up and running 13,000 years ago at the last golden age, the Satya Yuga, right? Um, and that goes back all the way to 10,000 BCE, the constellation of Leo, right? And the whole component of the Sphinx having a lioness face and facing the constellation of Leo because it was actually built around this time kind of checks out with this. You can see the last time we dipped down happened to be at the end of the Younger Dryas period. The Younger Dryas period was when there was an asteroid and or a solar flare that affected the Earth. There was great floods, and every ancient civilization on the Earth that is old enough to have a documented case or mythology about it speaks about a great flood. How long ago was that great flood? Well, now we've been able to see through geological studies and so much more that there was a huge worldwide catastrophe 13,000 years ago. When was that? 10,000 BCE, when we fell through the galactic disk. Literally, we can track it scientifically now and went on the underpass of our galaxy. And then for around 12,500 years, plus or minus, we've been going through this whole entire downward spiral over here. And now we are where? Boom. We get to the galactic disk once again. And around 2012, that was the whole understanding of us shifting into a new age, was us moving from the galactic disk and going through it and now going on the upward path of it all, going into the higher consciousness, back into the evolution. So again, this is how our solar system travels, and it directly connects to our consciousness, directly connects to the experiences we're having. So not only does it connect like on that level where we're going up and down and through all types of energy fields affecting us as we do that, but even just the rotation in general of our solar system. Imagine our solar system being one planet and our solar system rotating around the sun in the center of our galaxy, which is actually a black hole, right? As we're doing that, there's a lot of space to cover, and we get affected by all types of things. And here is a document from NASA just kind of showing all the different things that our solar system has, well, not all of them, but some of the different things our solar system has experienced as we've traveled through a galaxy. And you can see here, first of all, let's go with the 30,000 years distance from the edge of our galaxy to the center of our galaxy. And Earth is also, interestingly enough, the same amount of years it takes us to go up and down in what I just showed you right here. That's the same distance in light years we are from the black hole in the center of the galaxy. These numbers are really interesting. So we have here the sun and planets, a new discovery. The sun and planets may have originated closer to the galaxy center and served outwards along its spiral arms. As the galaxy moves through the cosmos, its bow shock sends a deluge of cosmic rays raining down. What does that mean? So imagine the galaxy was at the top of a drum, a head of a drum, and then somebody had a mallet and was banging the drum. Now, the bow shock is the frequency and the vibration that goes underneath the skin of the drum by bombarding it. So imagine if you could see the vibrations going boom, 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 boom. Our galaxy operates in that way, as if it's a drum being hit from the top and a bow shock of cosmic rays are raining down. So when the Earth is below, we get affected by that bow shock. The solar system wobbles up and down 200 light years either side of the galaxy's disk. When it wobbles above, Earth may be exposed to more cosmic waves. This right here is metaphysically inspired. This right here is scientifically inspired. The science is backing up the fact that we go up and down 200 light years. They're giving us the years. So where it says 4000 BCE, that's 200 light years down all the way. We're in between Sagittarius and Scorpio, right here, 8000 AD, that's 200 light years above. And over here, passing through bright star forming regions might have exposed Earth to hazardous radiation from supernova, perhaps causing mass extinctions. So, what I'm doing now is I'm going over galactic weather. We talk about solar systematic weather all the time. People talking about climate change and all these things to do with that, not realizing that we have galactic weather that affects us on a deeper level. That we're passing through different parts of our universe that could actually affect the consciousness, life on Earth, um, the temperature, and so much more. And then here, passing through dark interstellar dust clouds could have altered Earth's climate, perhaps leading to episodes of global glaciation, right? Climate change from a position of us in the galaxy. So just another interesting component is something they used to teach us. Well, when I was in school in the 80s and 90s, was that Earth was at the end of our galaxy, at the end of the spiral. But back then, we didn't have the technology to really see the galaxy as we can see it now. And interestingly enough, we are actually right about here. We are not at the outskirts. We're almost in the middle. So now we're going to go deeper into the Milky Way galaxy, to my favorite topic, the galactic core, the black hole in the center of the galaxy. There is a supermassive black hole that we're all rotating around. It's the mass of 4 million of our suns. And the constellation known as Sagittarius A is located in the center of the Milky Way galaxy. It lies in the direction of the Sagittarius constellation near the border with Scorpius. It is the location of the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy. And again, the black hole lies at a distance of about 26,000 light years from Earth. That number again. And the reason why they don't tell you the exact spot is because since it's a black hole, they cannot directly observe it. They can only observe the light being bent around it. And we see that Sagittarius constellation is right about where it's happening. And this is an article from Business Insider, also just backing up the fact that Earth is closer to the supermassive black hole than we thought. We originally thought we are at the end of the galaxy, but we're not. That's not the case. Now we're jumping a little bit all over the place, but we're also on point at the same time because I'm talking about the galaxy and just going all over these different types of things that maybe you didn't know about the galaxy. So the next image you're going to see is, let's see how I want to set this up. So you might have heard as well, another thing that they taught us growing up was that Earth is on a collision course to Andromeda Galaxy. If you're in the chat room and you want to chime in, did you know this? Did they ever tell you this? That Earth is on a collision course with the Andromeda Galaxy. Fortunate for us, it's not going to be for a couple of billion years, I think, or at least hundreds of millions, if not a billion plus years. And maybe we've all ascended by then. But what they don't tell you is that Earth is already colliding with a galaxy, and it's called the Sagittarius Dwarf Galaxy. And this Sagittarius Dwarf Galaxy this is it right here. You're looking at the trajectory of it. Has been colliding with us for, I believe, over a billion years. And there is an anomaly when it comes to our solar system. One of the anomalies of our solar system is that we are lodged at a different angle. Like here's the sun, here's all the planets, and we're all on this flat plane, which is a whole other crazy rabbit hole to go down on how planets could have been created in the way that they were created in any solar system, because we were told that dust collects and the dust collects together and then creates these planets, and the planets rotate around the sun, but for them to all form in a perfectly flat plane where they're on the same plane in that kind of situation is extremely anomalous. However, our solar system is on a different plane. It's lodged at an angle. But the rest of the planets and solar systems we see in our galaxy are all on the same angle. And the reason why we'll talk about in a second here. So the next image is going to be an image of the Sagittarius Dwarf Galaxy over the last billion plus years. It's a GIF image, so it'll show you a little video of how it's been colliding with Earth, just to show you that we're actually having this collision happen now. Here it comes. 8 billion years ago. Okay, let's start again. So starting at 8 billion years, okay? It goes fast, so pay attention here. Here we go. 8 billion years. 5.7 billion years ago, first pass. 3 billion years ago. 1.9 billion years ago. 1 billion years ago. Current situation. So guess where? Guess where? Okay, let's get some people to say something in the chat here. Take a guess where this solar system is connecting to our Milky Way galaxy. And I think I've given it away. And the answer is through our solar system. We, chances are, we were sucked in, our galaxy, our planet, our solar system was sucked in and integrated from this dwarf galaxy, however billion years ago, into there. There's an asteroid, a series of asteroids that pass through our solar system, not the asteroid belt, but every November it passes through us. And it's actually asteroids from this dwarf galaxy that are coming to Earth. And a lot of little particles still come to Earth and get burned up in the atmosphere. Every now and then a big one comes through, like the one that happened when it flattened the trees out in Russia a couple of decades ago. Some people thought that it was from the asteroid belt. No, it's from this. Every single year we're a dartboard for all types of fragments coming in from this galaxy. So back to the galactic center. The horizontal streak of brighter stars across the center of the image is the plane of the Milky Way, right? That's the plane, the flat plane they call it. And the galactic center, the supermassive black hole, is right there where that huge bulge is, because all these suns are just crowded around it and all this light is being sucked in by it. So you see this massive, this awe-inspiring light show right in the center. My theory is that the way the physical world works with dimensions and frequencies and consciousness is the gravity of the black hole in the center of the galaxy. When you get closer to it, the gravity increases, thereby the frequency increases as well. So I feel as Earth moves closer to the black hole in the center of the galaxy, there needs to be a shift in consciousness and the planet needs to evolve. And that's what's occurring now. That's what occurs throughout the whole galaxy. The reason why it needs to evolve is when you start getting closer with that gravitational pull, it's very difficult to live in a third dimensional reality where you're a victim to the elements, where you need to be in the Goldilocks zone, where you need to have a certain amount of sun, nitrogen, carbon, whatever you need on Earth, water. You need to be evolved out of certain limitations so that the effects of the actual physical universe doesn't affect your physical existence. So they say that this black hole has been dormant for quite some time. Now, before we talk about, is it dormant? Has it been dormant? We're going to talk about white holes. What is a white hole? A hypothetical region of space-time and singularity which cannot be entered from the outside, although energy, matter, light, and information can escape it. Okay, so technically that's the exact opposite of a black hole, right? Well, not technically, literally, it's the exact opposite of a black hole. For a while, they said they were not sure if we observed it, but the theory is that it should exist. If there's a black hole, right? How many times do people take the moment to philosophically wonder, like, what the heck is a black hole? There's literally a rip in space time and everything is being sucked into it. It seems like a glitch in the matrix. Where is it going? What is this world really? What is reality? We can literally observe a hole in the universe in space-time, where space-time as we know it is distorted and bent and then doesn't exist inside the singularity, and then all physical, everything and anything gets sucked into it, into oblivion, right? Think about the philosophical questions behind that. So possible types of white holes. Other side of a black hole, a universe where there are white holes and no black holes. Maybe this is the universe of black holes. Maybe there's another one with just white holes. Maybe the sun is a white hole. Could suns be white holes, pulling energy out of black holes and then emanating out somewhere else? Could it be a reversal phase of a supermassive black hole? Could a supermassive black hole reverse and become a white hole? So these are all the theories and questions. I personally feel like multiple ones of these. I think it could be multiple ones. For example, we have a supermassive black hole in the center of our galaxy, the mass of 4 million suns. But then this smaller, thousands of smaller black holes all over our galaxy. They all operate differently and they do different things. Could the supermassive black hole become a white hole, spewing ether or whatever it sucks in into space that eventually settles and coalesces to the ends of our galaxies? Could the white hole be spitting out energy, whereas the black hole sucks it in? Technically, that's what it should be, right? So could the white hole be spitting out matter that we then use to create reality? Because where does everything come from? Where does all the matter to create everything come from? If there's constantly things being created, where is it coming from? The supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy let out an enormous flare of radiation 3.5 million years ago that would have been clearly visible for Earth. So the answer is check. Supermassive black hole was once a white hole. 3.5 million years ago, it reversed. The black hole started spitting out energy and matter and physical particles. This discovery changed our view of the galaxy's black hole, which we'd only seen as dormant throughout recorded human history. Guys, that's not even 100 years, to be quite honest, right? We haven't been able to observe the black hole for a while. So white hole, when the polarity reverses and spews out matter, there's estimated to be 10 million, huge range here, to 1 billion black holes in our galaxies, rips in space-time. There was a Keck team led by UCLA astronomer Andrea Ghez, and they've now identified a star that orbits our black hole, and it orbits it in 11.5 years, the shortest orbital period for a star yet discovered. Just imagine it. Supermassive black hole, they're not using that term lightly. They should be like supermassive black hole. And 4 million of our suns. There's a star that's orbiting it at 11.5 years. The rapid speed of that sun. Imagine if it had any planets around it. The rapid speed. What level of consciousness would you have to even be at? Or you would have to exist as pure energy to even be able to be a sentient life form living on that planet. Definitely not with the conditions that we need to be alive. Now, the sun. Could the sun be a stargate? Could the sun be a white hole? I think it is. They used to say that the sun was using another update from the 90s and before. The sun was using nuclear fission to create energy, and they thought that after the nuclear fission was over, that's when the sun dies, and either depending on how large it is, it either implodes and becomes a black hole, or it explodes and becomes a supernova. Our sun, the size of our sun, isn't large enough to become a supernova. So what will happen when it dies is it will become quite a few times bigger, all the way expanding out to Mars, and all those planets will be sucked in, and then it will implode into a black hole. So we actually have seen suns turning into black holes, right? So could the sun be a white hole? And could a white hole or a black hole kind of connection be some type of wormhole for traveling from one dimension to another? What if you could create a force field around yourself or your ship and go through a black hole? Could you exit out of another reality, out of a white hole? If the sun is not using nuclear fusion in order to create energy, where is the energy coming from? Is it coming from the singularity? Well, if it becomes a black hole and it technically becomes a singularity, it wouldn't be hard to imagine that some sort of singularity from some other place in space-time is sucking in energy and it coming out of the sun. And now here, this image that you see is an image of some sort of craft that this was on NASA's website. I saw it on NASA's website back in early 2005, 2006, I think. When was it? I saw it. No, 2012. Yeah. So this was put out on Facebook, right? NASA's website was put on Facebook. People were saying, look at this, there's all these structures coming out of the sun. It's on NASA's website. I was fortunate enough to click to the website and see this on NASA's website on the live stream of the sun. They had images coming out. And then the next day, of course, it was taken out. And this structure, multiple ones, there was many different structures just like this coming out of the sun or being attached to the sun. And look at the size of Earth and look at the size of this structure. And what's it doing? Is it coming out of the sun, or is it some sort of energy device pulling energy from the sun? Right. And I like to show this one because I could verify I literally saw it on their website. And then doing spectral analysis, it's some sort of solid type of metallic object. So we spoke about black holes, we spoke about white holes, and the building blocks for reality. And the building blocks for reality, in my opinion, is the fifth element. We have earth, wind, fire, and water, but we have the fifth element, which is ether. Ether is the building blocks for all reality. So when I said earlier, where does it all come from? Where's all the matter? Where is the dust and the stardust and the material that we need to create galaxies, nebulae, suns, and all that coming from? Well, that's the ether. The ether comes out and then forms elements, and the elements then form planets and planetary systems and bodies, and those then form organic material. And the organic material then creates the soup for life to manifest in this dimension, right? So the element that all elements come from, pure potential and matter, creates stars, galaxies, nebulae, everything. Ancient and medieval scientists believed the ether is a material that fills the region of the universe above the terrestrial sphere. So interesting. These guys weren't technically metaphysicians, but look, they're literally saying an energy material that fills the universe above the terrestrial sphere. I would actually tend to agree with them. In physics, they say ether is a substance or field thought to be necessary as a transmission medium for the propagation of electromagnetic or gravitational forces. Basically, some sort of energy that helps the forces of the universe operate, like the lubrication. My opinion, my theory is kind of backs all this up, but I would put it into simpler form. The 3D printing material for the physical universe that comes from the void, a place of no dimension. Could the ether that is sent to the ends of the galaxy act like an infinity spiral of matter to continuously form celestial bodies? Is it possible that the outskirts of the galaxy homes the lower dimensional experiences due to the ability for 3D life to exist on the ends of our galaxy because of the lack of the gravitational pull from a black hole? And higher dimensional civilizations probably exist in that component closer to the black hole in the center of the galaxy, closer to the void, closer to God. All these ancient civilizations that talked about the central sun being God, that was the void, that was the black hole. The central sun in Mayan scriptures and so many other ones around the world literally means the black hole. And that was what they utilized as God. The seed of God, that was the black hole, the seed of God, the supermassive black hole. So, but when it became a white hole for that period of time, did it spew out matter and ether that then rained down onto our galaxy and then became planets and nebulae and all that? Well, technically, actually, it did do that. We know it did do that. So let's take 1 second here because there's a lot of information. And I invite everybody just take a deep breath in, and we're going to get back into dimensions now. Take a deep breath in. Let it go. So now we're going to get into dimensions because we want to get into the fourth and the fifth dimension. What are those? It's important to know, I already said this about lower dimensions, higher dimensions. That's a human construct. So what is the fourth dimension? So I showed you earlier, and you can see the image down here again, and the image over here too. There's 3 dimensions. So look at this image down here in the bottom. Length, width, and height, 3 dimensions. The fourth dimension is an object placed within the three. With the 3 dimensions, there is no experience until one object is placed in that. What is that object? Physical reality. You, me, planet, stars, galaxies, everything, even the black holes, exist within that. Once you have that object placed within the three, you now have the introduction of a temporal dimension of space time. So, time as a fourth dimension. In the theory of special relativity developed by Albert Einstein, time is considered the fourth dimension. In this theory, space and time are unified into four-dimensional space. We have these are the different types of thought processes around dimensions. Don't need to read this, guys. I'll read it to you. Okay. Mathematical fourth dimension. The fourth dimension is often considered a spatial dimension in mathematics, but it exists beyond our three dimensions. In string theory, some people believe that it proposes the existence of extra spatial dimensions beyond the three that we're familiar with. These extra dimensions could explain certain phenomena, but are not visible to the eye or directly observable. Some people believe the fourth dimension is an access to a parallel dimension, a parallel reality. And then we have the spiritual understanding as well. The fourth dimension can be viewed as a realm beyond the physical, where consciousness, spirituality, or higher states of existence reside. And then within time travel, an individual may move through time as if we're a spatial dimension. So just to make this a little clearer here, for this part, what I'm saying is all of these different things, time as a fourth dimension, mathematical understanding, string theory, parallel dimensions, spiritual philosophy, time travel, all have overlapping understandings. Some people believe that the fourth dimension is the astral world, life between lives, NDEs, near-death experience realms. Space-time permeates through time. It's not just third dimensional. It's a portal through all time and space, which is why black holes and wormholes are literally rifts within that fourth dimensional reality, right? That's also a portal to another reality as well. So physicists considered in space-time meaning a spatial dimension beyond the normal three. New studies dedicated this dimension by studying black holes. So by studying black holes, that's how they discovered in physics the fourth dimension. Because why? Black hole bends space-time. Now, every single dimension has a geometry to it. And now we're talking a little bit about matrix information here. The fourth dimension is also, in essence, kind of what keeps us within this matrix. It's interesting because it's a paradox. It's keeps us within the matrix, but it's also the answer to how to break free from the matrix. And every single dimension has its own geometry. And in the way I look at it is that if consciousness is pure light, the geometry is the prism for that light to be reflected through. And then outside, on the other side of it, is the holographic reflection of all the colors that come in physicality: light, geometry, physical reality, right? That's almost like the prism. And the geometry within physics for the fourth dimension is called a tesseract, which is in itself paradoxical and very interesting. And it's the cube within a cube. And basically, it's a cube within a cube. And you're looking at it right here. And the next one is going to be a live video image of, an artistic representation of the cube within a cube. And we're going to take a look right now at the way the geometry of the matrix is the loop. This is deep, I feel, because not only is it the loop of the time space, but it's also a loop of the karmic cycle and the wheel of reincarnation. Because a lot of times when we die and we go to NDEs and other lives, I feel we're still within this construct. We're still within this video game. This video game is not just this third dimension, fourth dimension, fifth dimension. There's other realities, the realm of ghosts, near-death experiences, a panel life review. All of those are just different levels to the video game. There's a game beyond it, right? But this game was created in a really amazing way for us to have not only hardcore challenging experiences like has been here on Earth, but also transcendental experiences too. And so this next one is the matrix geometry of the fourth dimension, the tesseract. The karmic cycle, the reincarnation wheel, the way time works, all things looping, the cycles of time. So from a physics perspective, Einstein's theory of special relativity suggests a connection between space-time. So space-time consists of three spatial dimensions and one temporal. So three spatial, length, width, height, one temporal, space-time. Now here is a great example of how we can observe the fourth dimension. Consider a blooming flower. The flower's position is not changing. It's not moving up or sideways. Yet, we can observe the transformation, which is proof that another dimension exists. Equating time with the fourth dimension is one example, but the fourth dimension can also be positional like the first three. While it is possible to visualize space-time by examining snapshots of the flower, with time as a constant, it is also useful to understand how space-time interrelate geometrically as well. So observing the change is how we see the fourth dimension. Whereas you can literally see the three dimensions here right now. The reason why people skip the fourth dimension is because we are the fourth dimension right now. Sometimes people say, why are you going from the third to the fifth? Why don't we go to the fourth? Because we're living in the fourth. The fourth is a part of the three dimensions, which is why other text people call it the third density. And the third density that we live in is actually fourth dimension, right? And we're moving to the fifth. It's a place of transition or dimension between dimensions, so to speak. So the fourth is in the portal kind of. It's what's allowing us. We are through our evolution of our consciousness, we are becoming the masters of the fourth dimension. So what does it mean to be a master of the fourth dimension? Well, you're the master of space time. Time doesn't affect you anymore like it used to. Space doesn't affect you anymore as it used to. But when you have a fifth dimension, you're adding one extra temporal dimension. Now you still have three dimensions. And then you have one of time, two of time. You no longer have one temporal dimension. You have two temporal dimensions. Time becomes fluid. Time as we know it is no longer the same. The integration point is now in existence. The third point of the triangle, which is what the Lyrans, if you know anything about the Prism of Lyra story, what they were looking for, they were looking to change the line into a triangle, and the triangle being the third point, as you can see this image in the back, the balance point, the integration point. Having this extra temporal dimension changes our perception of time. This is a key component to realize a relationship with otherworldly beings, since if they exist in this dimension or higher, they do not exist within linear time. Therefore, they're simultaneously existing with us. And as we shift into those dimensions, I feel like we are surrounded we're there's dimensions stacked upon dimensions, experiences and realms stacked upon each other. And as we shift our frequencies and go into these realities, we're going to be, I think, pleasantly surprised with all the experiences that we're going to have and what we're going to start seeing. Now, the fifth dimension also has a geometry. It's called the pentaract. And here is the geometry of the fifth dimension. The fifth dimension also isn't just a metaphysical word. Like many people, I think, might feel because we use it so often within spirituality that it's just a spiritual term. But the fifth dimension has been studied for quite some time, and we have evidence of study back in 1921, where the early research was happening on 5D space, and the Large Hadron Collider too. I'll get into that in a second. They've been studying 5D space. They attempted to develop a theory that unites the four fundamental interactions in nature: strong, weak, nuclear forces, gravitational, electromagnetism. These are all seemingly independent forces. So their theory was maybe in 5D space, all these things that we seem as independent, mind you, mainstream regular physics, okay? Maybe all these energies that we seem operating independently through the universe might be unified in 5D space. Yeah, that is a spiritual understanding, in my opinion, because that is true. We start realizing how everything is working together. The dimension would not be directly observable. Klein suggested that 5D would be rolled up into tiny compact loop. So this is 1921 research. Under his reasoning, he envisioned light. This is very interesting. His theory was that light was a disturbance caused by rippling in the higher dimensions, just beyond human perception. While not detectable, it would indirectly apply a connection between seemingly unrelated forces. Again, this guy wasn't, maybe he was, but for my research, he wasn't sitting there meditating or going to the Himalayas trying to talk to the gurus. He was doing regular physics and speculating on the discoveries that they were finding. And the regular physics was backing up everything that we now know spiritually. But the part of the light being a ripple effect from higher dimensions is also very interesting because if, for example, light comes from suns and suns come from white holes, and white holes are the reversal of a black hole, technically it's coming from another dimension, if that is how it's working. The Closet-Klein theory experienced a revival in the 1970s due to the emergence of superstring theory. The concept that reality is composed of vibrational strands of energy in 10 dimensions or more. So that's the whole string theory, which is extremely close. Uh, Quantum physics definitely has its setbacks because too many of them don't understand or try to understand consciousness. That's the missing link when it comes to quantum physics. Consciousness, the spiritual understanding of everything. And but this is so close to it all, right? Everything is vibrating energy. So one more thing on the fifth dimension. So the Large Hydrogen Collider in Geneva that you guys might have heard about, gave an opportunity to record indirect evidence of the fifth dimension's existence. So they've been doing research on it too. Physicists theorize that collisions of subatomic particles in turn produce new particles as a result of the collision, including a graviton that escapes from the fourth dimension. So what happened was they were bombarding these subatomic particles, right, as they do in the Large Hadron Collider, going around at rapid speeds, colliding with each other. As they were colliding, there was another particle coming out that they called the God particle, also called the graviton. There was a graviton escaping from the collision of the subatomic particles. But as it escaped from the collision, it vanished. A subatomic particle vanished into the ether. It's like pun intended and no pun at the same time. Because where did it go? They believed that the collision was so rapid that a fifth dimensional portal opened up and the graviton escaped into fifth dimensional space. That's mainstream peer reviewed stuff right there. Okay. Utilizing this with a magnet. So when they utilize this whole study with a magnet to lift a pin off the table, the magnet is able to overcome gravitational pull of the entire Earth with ease. So what they did there, they were able then to mimic and utilize that science with this magnet, and the magnet was able to overcome gravity. Okay. Now, philosophically and metaphysically, what are they talking about here? They literally created a stargate to the fifth dimension where a subatomic particle was able to go into the fifth dimension. What if we can mimic that on a Newtonian level? Could we create stargates? Could we create teleportation? Is this the beginning of all of that? And I don't have my research on teleportation here, but we've already done that with multiple hydrogen atoms now. So it's been done beyond an atom. But so 4D to the 5D space, they created a stargate. And they also created something that was able to make a magnet overcome gravity, the beginning of anti-gravity. Where is ET is the biggest question, right? That's why we're all here. Why can't we see extraterrestrials? Why do they not just land on the White House lawn? I heard that one a few times. Why don't they come and help us and save us from ourselves? Well, if they're everywhere, why can't we see them? And it's the most simplest of answers. It's a frequency game. When you shift your frequency, you can see. We only exist within a certain bandwidth of frequency. We only perceive a certain bandwidth of frequency. The shift in consciousness is a broadening of our ability to experience multiple frequencies. We have all types of limitations frequency wise. We can only hear a certain amount of frequency range. We can only perceive a fraction of the visible light spectrum. We only have a certain amount of scent receptors that only can perceive specific frequencies of scent. So when we shift our frequency, we can see. And now I'm just going to close out here with, I think I'll close out with a poem, guys, you know, just to kind of bring it all home here and end it with something a little creative because this thing goes on for a long time. So just to wrap out that part, yeah, that's what it all comes down to. What does conscious have to do with it? It all has to do with a vibratory frequency and expanding that. And that is what's happening not only through all the awareness on the planet, all the uncovering and the unveiling, or tapping into a new level of science and seeing what's behind the veil. And also, as I showed you, the position of a solar system in our galaxy, all these things are supporting that expansion of consciousness and frequency. Now, I'm going to close out here with a poem called the Fragmentation Poem. And in some ways, it puts together a lot of what we just shared, what I just shared with you in poetry form. And I split this into three parts. We have the void, we have the darkness, and we have the light. So here we go. It's called Fragmentation Poem. In the beginning, there were no words, no concept, no winning, no place, no time, no description, no label, and no finishing, until awareness became conscious of itself. Separation from the source. No east, no west, no south or north. Not to mention there never existed a dimension or ascension or physical lessons, except for the 0 point. There was no Christ to anoint. Singularity, energy, frequency, raised vibrationally, paradoxically into limitation of what only the five senses can see. No linearity, no anarchy, no galaxies, no nebulae, no jobs, no nature, no materialism, and no political lies. Until darkness finally fragmented from the light, using free will to see through the night. The darkness. I take the anxiety pill full of fright. In my bed, insecure for the conspiracy that might take over my mind, control me with a chip inside, scared and full of fear. That is the reason why we are here. To the star system of Arcturus, I stare and recite my cosmic prayers. Self empowered. The fabric of victim consciousness I tear. The light. Everybody. The destination has already been chosen. It's the journey that counts. Every day we transcend, no doubt, living in the now, realizing it's all a projection of a co-creation of our own subconscious mind. Channel energy through the heart, remembrance of the divine. Take apart my ego and restart my life in any moment. I'm going home, traveling across the black intergalactic ocean. I took the psychedelic potion. Now I'm awoken to the streets. We take the spoken word. Fly high. Levitate the God inside. I am free like a bird, cosmic oneness integrating in my being, a full spectrum being, in alignment with the purity confined in ranges of frequencies inhibit what we are seeing. I shift what I choose to believe in, fuel my light body for the ether I am feeding.